Hello, everybody, and welcome to Strudel Talk. And today's episode will be 10 facts about me. So make yourself comfortable and let's go to question number 1. I am from Mongolia and I grew up in Ulaanbaatar, that's the capital city of our country. And Mongolia is surrounded by two powerful countries that are Russia and China. I've been asked this question a lot. I think not so many people actually choose Austria to study or something. At least that's the impression I always got. Anyhow, I moved to Austria because I wanted to start my bachelor's, and back then my dad was suggesting me to, get out of my country because our system is very bad, and my parents had a chance to support me, and we had several universities in our mind and I applied to them. And one of the things stood out for me, the Austria, was the safety and also lifestyle. And back then it was super hard to find bachelor degrees in English in Europe, and if I wanted to go to UK it was so expensive. For my parents though, they really supported me through my bachelor's, and only place that we thought the tuition fee was okay was IMC Krems. So that is how my journey began in Austria. So my guilty pleasure when it comes to food, it's McDonald's. So the thing is that Mongolia, we don't have McDonald's, and whenever I see McDonald's, I go crazy. Especially when I'm hangover, I always order McDonald's. You need this greasy, fatty food, and you cannot really make it by yourself when you're hangover. And there is when my money goes away. Also, when I'm PMSing, I love McDonald's ice cream. Another thing I do a bit disgusting is that I order McDonald's French fries, and then with the ice cream, I eat it together. I highly recommend this. It tastes actually very good. Let's jump to the next question. Once you started living in Austria for many years, you do learn many things. So I learned how to complain. Gosh, I love complaining. Like, I complain small stuff. I also leave reviews on Google, which I never did that before. And now I'm like, yeah, this place was like this, like that. Or with my friends, I just complain smallest thing that I interact. And one day, I think a friend who is actually Austrian told me like, yeah, the complaining is really Austrian thing. And even my mom told me that I became a white person. So you see, past 13 years how I got integrated to Austrian culture. I think by now I can get Austrian citizenship by just showing how I can complain, and they'll be, yes, you're one of us. I have like 3 weirdest talents I want to mention about myself. You may see from the pictures and getting confused like why the eyes and also Batman going on. So guys, I discovered that I can move my right eye to the core of my eye, but my left eye stays in the middle. I don't know how I discovered that, but I realized I can do that, and I thought, whoa, this is amazing. And another thing is that I can do Batman voice. I don't know like how I also discovered that. I think like if I remember it correct, I was trying to impress my back then boyfriend, which is also a weird way to impress someone, and I did that Batman voice, which kinda worked. So in general, I guess I attract weird people or something like that. And another thing is that everybody knows, not everybody knows, my friends, all of them knows that I can make things so uncomfortable. Somehow, in my head, I think I'm filtering my words. But then I heard that actually I just straightforward asks questions without thinking. And low-key, I thought maybe I'm autistic. But then friend of mine, he told me that I'm just an asshole, not autism. Yeah, so it's the combination of not thinking but trying to actually filter. It's so weird. Sometimes I just make it so uncomfortable, and sometimes I don't realize that, and later I'm like, oh no. And of course then I apologize later because I cannot think in that moment I say something wrong, and then I try to also make weird jokes. So yeah guys, that is my biggest talent probably. Question number 6. So at the moment I am trying to again gain my power with bouldering. I started going again like after several months because I had some injuries and my schedule was not really working with me. So you might see me at some kind of boulder halls, trying those easy routes. And if you know any tips for bouldering, leave a comment. Okay, this part is gonna be very long, so there are several moments actually shaped me. The first one was like how I appreciate my family. Because, sometimes when you're a teenager, you tend to just, wanna spend your time with your friends and not so much with your parents. So that changed a lot. I was also so jealous of those people who can just go back home, like, take a train or very quick flights. Because for us it's gonna be like 10 hours of trip. It's not that cheap, and that's the moment you feel like, okay, this is really how you can be alone and lonely in somewhere. And I shaped my thought that whenever I have a chance, I go back home and be with my family. Another thing is shaped me was actually I failed my exam, and that was very depressing. And meanwhile, I realized that, okay, take things seriously. I know I'm depressed and whatnot. I'm away from home. But I think that made me actually gain more strength and try to understand that, life is how it is. Certain things I have a power to change, and I have to just try my best. Because, those moments you feel like you're failing yourself and failing your parents because they're the one who's supporting you to, get this good education. And I just had to study, right? But yeah, after this lesson, I really tried my best to, do my best. And another thing shaped me as now who I am, kind of, is like working in a group of people. I am quite fine being alone nowadays, or I just learned how to be alone, I guess, since I was 18, and I can be quite independent, I would say. But when you are this kind of person anyway, and you need to work, I don't know, like over 10 people in one lab, and you have to shape your characteristics, personalities, because you cannot be an asshole that you think that you are the best or something. Of course I'm not. So through all of these experiences, I think now I kinda shaped in a better person. Okay, let's jump to the next question. I always carry now ibuprofen, so painkiller, wherever I go. I think this is a sign of getting older and also not being able to really get over hangover very easily. The other day, for example, I had 2 beers with friends and I got headache. How could it be so fast that I get dehydrated and then headache came? And another thing I carry is my earplugs. I became such a sensitive sleeper. When I was younger, I could sleep with lights on. If there's some noise going on, I didn't care. But now, if I hear slight noise, I wake up. I guess it's also something to do with aging. For example, my former flatmate, she snores. It's because she is allergic to dust mites, and it's so easy to, her nose get clogged. And we went to Dubrovnik together and we shared a room. And since I knew she snores, I took my earplugs with me. One of the nights I had my earplugs, but I could still hear her snoring, and I had to tell her that please can you roll and move around and so on. I felt also bad for her because it's not like she's purposely snoring. So these 2 items are so essential for me. Now we are arriving to question number 9. When you start living in one country quite long time, sometimes it's so hard to also identify yourself and also to describe actually what is home. But now I think I got used to calling Vienna is actually my home. So the place I feel like home is my living room. I spend so much time, money on decorating my living room that it makes me feel like I don't want to leave this room. So sometimes I do a date with myself, which I cook something something very nice, and I have a small beamer, and in the evenings I would put movies on the beamer and then just have my food, and after that have my glass of wine. I started enjoying being alone. Before this I was living in a shared apartment. When I decided to live alone, I was a bit afraid, like how am I gonna feel being really alone. And back then I asked a friend of mine, because she also lives alone, and how it feels. She said it's amazing, and I completely agree with her. Now we have arrived to the last question. So why did I start podcast? One of the reason is that I got inspired by a friend of mine who was also doing podcast, and both of us are now actually jobless too. And I think being jobless kind of helps you to explore who you are. Also, what kind of area do you want to improve yourself? And with this podcast, I wanted to tell my experiences living in abroad for so many years. And whoever moved to Vienna or Austria, they have very similar struggles. And usually I try to tell them also like, hey, like you're not alone. Everybody goes through this, And that made me realize like, hey, why not through podcast? So if you're listening to this episode, and thank you very much. If you haven't listened to my other episodes, my podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. You choose which platform you would love to hear. With this, I'm coming to the end, and if you would like to know more specific stories, please leave a comment. Until the next episode, bye!